Good afternoon to you. Thanks for clicking on to Mark Vogan's long range discussion for today, Sunday the 29th of January. And we have got a lot colder air starting to infiltrate its way across the UK and even parts of Ireland as well. Now, we've got a bit of a clash zone kicking up here. We've got milder air flowing up the western side of the UK, off the west side of the mainland of the UK. Colder air is trying to work its way in from the near continent as that cold starts to expand over the continent. Been talking about this now for the past 10 days. Models have been persistent, and the evidence is showing. Quite often you'll get when you're talking a good 10 days out, things can change, and really once those 10 days have gone by, you'll probably notice quite often the weather is very different to what the models eventually or earlier on predicted. But we are seeing the cold now starting to intensify, and I'm really concerned. I've continuously said that I'm very concerned as to just how cold the air is going to be over many parts of Europe over the course of the next 7 days. Now, we have got colder weather, like I've said, trying to work its way into the UK. And what you'll find is there won't be a widespread snowfall over the course of this week, folks. And the problem is high pressure is actually going to be dominant as it works in a very, very large, very powerful Scandinavian high pressure is now building continuously over this region here. And what it's doing is it's raising heights. It's an Arctic high pressure, and it's raising heights all across Europe. The whole of Europe, folks, is going to be sitting underneath a very powerful, very cold high pressure system. Now you see here the upper level low here to the north of the Black Sea. We've got systems here working their way through the southern part of Europe, through the Mediterranean Sea. And what that's doing is bringing unsettled weather on the northern periphery of these systems. Any moisture will fall as heavy snow and wind-blown snow as well. So we'll continue to see some messy conditions through parts of the Alps, into the Balkans, and through Greece as well. But as we progress through, folks, the cold that I'm seeing is still powerful. I was saying there, as we progress closer to actual real time, quite often the models will start to adjust, but they haven't been adjusting, folks. And that's what makes me think we are going to be seeing temperatures in central parts of Europe at night down below minus 30. Now, that really is very brutal. Some of the coldest weather we've seen in many years. Look at this here, folks. Even into the UK by Thursday, by later in the week. I've been saying this all along, and now many sources, media, the BBC, the Met Office, starting to catch on to the idea now that we're going to be starting to see much colder weather across the majority of the UK. Now, yes, Ireland remains still what looks to be in milder air, but I don't buy the fact that Ireland is going to be as mild as this model predicts. I think the cold will get further and further westwards. Now, as for snow, we're going to be seeing a very stinging cold easterly wind flow. What that I think will do is we're going to be seeing some snow in eastern parts of the UK. Something similar to the end of November of last year when we seen that heavy snow piling up across the eastern seaboard of the UK. I don't think it's going to be quite as bad as that. The reason being is the North Sea is colder. That was at a time when you had very harsh cold winds blowing over a still relatively warm North Sea. This time around, we've got a colder North Sea, and therefore the ingredients won't be just as good for that type of event. But I do think we could be, over the course of the week, seeing these very frigid winds blowing in off Denmark, the Low Countries, where temperatures will continue to drop off as you get this chunk, this vortex, this core of coldest air starting to sweep into the central part of Europe. But you notice here, the UK will be cold. Temperatures by Thursday into Friday will struggle to get above freezing in many parts, including the Midlands, down into the southeast of England. We could be seeing temperatures really struggling to hit freezing even in London by the end of the week. Low temperatures, if we get clear skies, light winds, and of course the very cold air mass in place, we could be looking quite widely at minus 10, minus 5 to minus 10 Celsius. By places like Oxfordshire, got a couple of cold areas like such as Benson. Wouldn't be surprised if we've seen a minus 15 there. But of course, there's a lot to play for. There's a lot of things that can change. But you notice here, by Friday the 3rd of February, look at just how cold that air mass is over Central Europe, folks. Do not underestimate just how cold that is. The reason being, this is actually off the GFS chart off the Media Group website. Notice here, some 30s below zero showing up in Celsius, 22 below in Fahrenheit, folks. And I think this, into Germany as well, we could be looking at minus 30s by mid to late week. And certainly that is something worth noting. But in terms of snowfall, folks, I think for the UK as a whole, we're going to be struggling to see any major system. I think it's going to be more a settled high pressure system that will dominate late week. Therefore, we'll have less chance of snowfall, but more in the way of cool weather. And really, folks, as well, when you don't have the snow on the ground, you struggle to really have that perfect maximum radiational cooling environment to really drive those temperatures down. The lack of snow cover will limit that cooling, but certainly there's a lot of things that can change. Wouldn't be surprised if we maybe get the odd little system that tries to bump in, push in from the Atlantic. That could raise the snowfall chances later on into the week as that warmth works and fights against the building cold that will eventually win out over western parts of Europe, and it might make for perhaps, like, a last gasp, more widespread snow potential for the UK and Ireland as well. But certainly, folks, this week is going to be bone chilling. We're going to be seeing record temperatures through Poland, Germany, perhaps even into France. Some of the models are showing lows down to -9 in Paris. Wouldn't be surprised if there was -10 or colder in Brussels and Amsterdam, and parts of Germany, Poland, and especially into Russia, folks. We could be looking at temperatures below -30. Moscow hasn't hit -30 or colder since January of 2006. That is very, very much in the cards this week ahead, and we are going to be seeing some snowfall as well. Even though we've got high pressure, you can get systems that can betray and pull moisture up into the cold air. We could be looking at some very, very interesting information coming out of Europe during the course of this week. Looking at Sunday, you can see here the cold still fighting against this milder air, folks. This collision in air masses, folks, could produce some pretty heavy snowfall. There is a lot of things that can change. There's a lot of complications in this pattern, folks. Be patient. The cold is coming. As I've been drumming home for the past 10 days, we have got cold weather coming. And I do think and I do believe that these models, and of course what you're hearing on the news and whatnot, I think it's going to be colder than what many are suggesting. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises here. I'm trying to siphon out, trying to find where those surprises could take place before they happen. So continue to check back the first-hand weather and climate through the eyes of Mark Vogan. Follow on Facebook and Twitter, and I'll keep you up to date. Have a great evening, folks. Bye-bye.